Hello everyone, today we will talk about the pathogen named Salmonella. Salmonella is a bacteria that belongs to the family Enterobacteriaceae, causes a disease named typhoid fever in human beings but not in animals. Typhoid fever is caused by an infection with gram-negative bacteria Salmonella enterica, serotype typhi, or simply Salmonella typhi, or related bacteria Salmonella paratyphi, which has different subtypes A, B, or C. They are shaped like rod and can have flagella to move around. There is also a term we use, enteric fever, which describe both the typhoid and the paratyphoid fever. Now here comes the transmission of this pathogen. How typhoid fever transmitted, which is caused by the bacteria Salmonella, as Salmonella enterica is responsible for typhoid fever. Well, humans are actually the only reservoir for this type of bacteria. So it has to come from human to another human. So either with the direct contact or indirect contact, it is contaminated via the food or the water. These food handlers are often asymptomatic and shed the bacteria through feces or less commonly through urine. Due to poor personal hygiene of these people, food is often contaminated with the bacteria. Bacteria can also be transmitted by drinking sewage contaminated water and eating the shellfish. Neglecting hand hygiene after using a contaminated toilet is the another mode of transmission. Now comes to the pathogenesis of the Salmonella typhi. Salmonella infections are transmitted via the fecal-oral route. Salmonella typhi and Salmonella paratyphi, they cause the typhoid fever. These bacteria are ingested orally and actually survives the gastric acids and then enter into the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. When they enter into the duodenum, then it can penetrate through intestinal epithelium and invade into the lymphoid tissue. And they do so by a couple of mechanisms. One is through an M cell, which is part of the MALT system, that is mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. And second with the spectrum is actually the penetrate into the epithelium is to direct penetration into epithelial cell via CFTR or cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator, which require ion channel. What does it mean? Actually, the chloride ion channels are mutated in the patients with cystic fibrosis. So essentially what happens is the Salmonella typhi or paratyphi utilizes this chloride ion channel and enters into the intestinal epithelial cells. Quite interestingly, the channels mutated in the patients with cystic fibrosis, the patients are protected against the typhoid fever infections. Another thing that happened is that once the Salmonella typhi bacteria penetrates in the epithelium, it proliferates in the submucosal, causing Peyer's patch hypertrophy. Peyer's patch is lymphatic tissue in the intestines where they become the hypertrophy because the bacteria actually proliferates inside to cause hypertrophy. Eventually it then disseminates the bacteria through lymphatic system and hematogenously through the blood. Now, what is the incubation period of Salmonella and the duration of the illness that is caused by the Salmonella? Depending on the size of the inoculum ingested and the health and immune status of the person, the incubation period of Salmonella typhi ranges from 5 to 21 days and the duration of the illness ranges from 7 to 14 days after the ingestion of the bacteria. Now, what are the symptoms? Symptoms of typhoid fever are characterized by mild fever and abdominal pain. Diarrhea and constipation occur with equal frequency. That means 50% of the diarrhea occurs and the other 50% of the time a person has constipation. Other symptoms include dehydration, cold and chills, stomach cramps, vomiting. Symptoms tend to start 8 to 72 hours after infection. In some cases, it leads to serious complications like bleeding from gastrointestinal tract or infection of the brain. Here comes the salmonellosis of women, that is the symptoms include weakness, nausea and vomiting, fever, abdominal pain in the stomach, bloating in the stomach, muscle and joint pain and diarrhea as well. Now what are the food sources from where this salmonella comes? First is the chicken and uncracked eggs. A person can get salmonella infection from various foods including chicken, beef, eggs, fruits, pork, sprouts, vegetables. Also, processed and packaged foods like nut butters, chicken nuggets and frozen pies. The raw poultry contains bacteria like Campylobacter, Salmonella, Clostridium perfringens and others. It is important to cook poultry and meat thoroughly. Eating raw fruits and vegetables may lead to cause food poisoning from harmful bacteria such as Salmonella, E. coli and Listeria. Moreover, a person can get infection easily by consuming raw dairy products including unpasteurized milk, soft cheese, ice cream and yogurt. The germs present in raw milk are very harmful for the body. This includes Campylobacter, Salmonella, E. coli and Cryptosporidium. Even uncracked and clean eggs contain several bacteria that cause food poisoning and make an individual sick. Several viruses and bacteria may be present in oysters and shellfish that can cause illness and death of an individual. The contaminated oyster may contain virus named norovirus. It is important to cook oysters properly so that a person may not suffer from food poisoning. These are the food sources which are associated with the salmonella. Now, how can we prevent the infection from salmonella? Because salmonella is mainly a foodborne disease, one of the most important methods of preventing salmonella is ensuring the safety of food. There are various ways by which this can be achieved, including making sure that food preparation areas are clean, separating raw and cooked food, prevent cross-contamination. Although cooking food thoroughly may help to reduce the infection from salmonella. Keeping food at correct temperatures and using safe water and raw materials to cook the food. Avoid high-risk foods like raw eggs, raw milk and raw meat. Fruits and vegetables should be washed properly. It is very important to wash or sanitize the hands, especially before cooking. Here are the 4 ways that avoid contamination. First is cook. Cook the food to their appropriate temperatures. Don't overcook the food. Next is the separate. Do not cross-contaminate. Third is clean. Wash hands and surface often to minimize the germs content. Last is chill. Refrigerate promptly. Now, what are the steps for the diagnosis and the treatment of this infection? The diagnosis of the fever is suspected if there is the exposure to the area. If an individual suspected 3 days or more fever and the gastrointestinal symptoms like diarrhea, abdominal pain or the stool bleeding, then laboratory tests should be advised. So in some parts of the world there are different strains of Salmonella typhi or paratyphi. There can be multi-drug resistance or MDR or even extensively drug resistance XDR strains of this bacteria. Generally speaking, the first line of antibiotics are going to use for typhoid fever include fluoroquinolones, azithromycin, ceftriaxone. For severe illness, dexamethasone sometimes may also recommend. Nowadays, vaccination is available for this type of disease to treat it. An outbreak of salmonella infections associated with onions that happened in the 47 states of United States. People began getting sick with this strain of salmonella at the end of the August. About 1,012 cases have been reported from the 47 states of United States. Duration of the illness ranging from June to August 2020. The percentage of infected females were 57, as 581 individuals were suffered from foodborne illness by consuming onions and 136 were hospitalized, though deaths have been observed during that period. Information reveals that red onions are the source of this epidemic. The onion types such as white, yellow, or sweet yellow are also contaminated due to the method of growing and harvesting of onions. The investigation indicates that 103 people ate red onions, 96 ate white onions, and 86 consumed yellow onions. What are the preventive measures that give rise to the consumers, restaurants, and the retailers? Avoid recalled onions or products to eat and serve. Don't eat recalled onions if you have at home. Restaurants and retailers should be aware about the recalled onions in their storage coolers. Do not sell or serve them. Always wash the surface that may come in direct contact with the onions. These surfaces may include countertops, storage bins, refrigerator drawers, knives, and utensils. If an individual follows these preventive measures, he or she may get rid from this infection.